Welcome back to 843 TV. We're now joined by Robin Townsend, the chair of Daufuskie Tourism. Robin, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you, David.
So tell me, Daufuskie Tourism markets Daufuskie as the southern gateway to South Carolina. Why is that?
Well, when you look at us geographically, we truly are the southern point in South Carolina. We sit along the intracoastal waterway, southernmost inhabited island, so that just makes us naturally the southern gateway to South Carolina.
Robin, what are some of the other things about Daufuskie Island that makes it so unique to the low country in South Carolina?
Well, we've, in putting parts of Daufuskie together, is like there's so many pieces, and as you know, Tom, having worked on the CP plan for so many years, Daufuskie has never really organized itself as to all the things that we have there. So in putting the pieces together, we realize all the things that are throughout the state of South Carolina are also found on Daufuskie. We have the golfing. We have a wonderful beach. We have history that's there. We have the marsh tacky races now, which there are other parts in the state, parts of the state that have horse racing. We even have a mountain on Daufuskie. Now I think this one's kind of fun. We have, I know you think the low country and elevation, a low country mountain, but when I found that, I was out exploring the island and I found an older map of the island and it has Mount Daufuskie on it. Well, you can go to the mountains here in the low country. And speaking of the history, I brought us a little prop here today for Daufuskie oysters. We know oysters and oyster roast are very popular here in the low country, but Daufuskie was well known one time for the oysters on Daufuskie. So I thought, well, this is something important. And so you can get there by boat. There are just so many things that make us a part of South Carolina. So seeing Daufuskie is like going one place to you can experience a lot that's throughout the rest of the state.
It's like all the fun stuff about South Carolina wrapped up on a little tiny island all by itself.
Just this little 2.5 by 5 mile island, and it's all these things are encapsulated on it, and it's fantastic.
And we talked earlier, so many people still have not been to Daufuskie, and it's a great place to go and visit. And you touched on how to get there and what do you do when you get there, and most important, where do you get the oysters?
These oysters you can get off the shelf in the grocery stores. So our local grocery stores have these, but the oyster industry once thrived on Daufuskie Island. So as you know, the Bluffton Oyster Company still harvests the oysters and you can get there, and I understand they're fantastic here.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah,
the oyster roast.
And all of our, now that all of our months are ending and
we're good for a while.
all about some oyster roasts. So tell everybody, what's the latest news from the Daufuskie Community Park? Because that was pretty exciting news for Daufuskie.
That is absolutely fantastic news. Daufuskie was recently awarded, and it's like just earlier this week, the press release, no, it's last week, I'm off a week. The press release came out that we were awarded an 80-20 grant, and it comes from the Park Trails RTP, Tom, is that how that goes? Parks Recreation? No. Recreational Trail Program, thank you, I have to get it correctly, an 80-20 grant. So when we did the Autumn Fest this year, which was November the 2nd, we didn't know we were going to have the grant yet, but we knew it had been applied for and it being a matching grant. So that fundraiser was actually for our park, so we'd already on the island gotten our first little money, and Tom just tells us our wonderful pavilion on the island is courtesy of Cruise Architect.
It really is a beautiful place once you've been there, and anyone that wants to come to the low country that has a bucket list of things they want to do, you know, there are probably dozens and dozens of things you could point to right now that here's the things you really ought to do once you get to Daufuskie. But you know, if I had to pin you down to say what are the top 5 things you would want to do, what's your top 5 things at Daufuskie?
You know, that's a dangerous list, but I think everybody has to prioritize some of what it is we want to do and what's important to us. So again, in starting to think what things are on the island and organizing, we came up with a little brochure to help us figure out what's there on the island, the annual events, the things that are there, and two, you need a map to do that. So I'm thinking the top 5 things. Now, are they? I can't put them in a specific order, so don't hold me to that.
I won't hold you to. We don't do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay,
thing, so
we won't do that. But one of the things that's very popular is our beach. We have a fantastic beach on Daufuskie Island, about 3 miles of beach, and it still has the shells and the birds and the things that lend itself to the beauty of it. And Okay, because of the history of the island, I would say the Historical Foundation has done a fantastic job of putting together a historical trail on the island, and on that trail, one of my favorites is the Gullah Learning Center, because Gullah culture has been so important here in the Lowcountry. It crosses over into a lot of the European cultures and others because we traded things backwards and forwards and learned from each other, and they kept so much of Daufuskie what it was because their value system, and they just didn't cut down the trees, and they didn't build up the fine homes, and they didn't overdevelop or over-harvest the water. So I think the Gullah Learning Center tells a good story. Another thing to do, top 5, is just go out. We refer to it when you see our guests on the island and they have their maps. They say, I just got lost. So you want to come to Daufuskie to get lost. Get your golf cart or your bike or however you're going to do it. Come and get lost on Daufuskie. Let's see, come to the marsh tacky races. We now have those over on Daufuskie, so mark your calendar. That would be a must-do. And then come anytime we're having an oyster roast over there. You have to come to an oyster roast, and considering how many months there are with the R, you get a lot of chances.
And there's a lot of delicious seafood. I always tell people that move down here, I'm asking, what's your favorite restaurant, or what's your favorite place to go to dinner, what's your favorite food? And they're still eating all that northern food.
There
we
you
live
go.
on the ocean.
Low country.
And fresh low country food is so completely different than something that you get out of a box. So when it's caught fresh and literally brought straight to the table, there is nothing better than fresh
There
seafood.
isn't. It's great. It's
I will
fantastic.
even eat a fresh oyster. That took a while.
Well, Robin, thanks for coming out today and talking a little bit about it. And Robin Townsend with the chair of tourism for Daufuskie Island, and encourage you to come out and get lost in Daufuskie. And we'll be right back on 843 TV.